5 long-lost beasts of the Old World. Number 1. Elasmotherium. Sometimes called the Siberian unicorn, this mighty creature was no myth, but it did not quite resemble a unicorn either. Rather, it was more a rhino on steroids. The reason it's called as such, however, is the huge horn on its face. Since it was most likely made out of keratin, it unfortunately does not withstand the test of time, and no Elasmotherium horn fossils exist today. Nevertheless, there is a round dome growth present on the skull where the horn would be expected to be. What shape it had or how big it actually was is left to our own imagination. So far, 3 subspecies are recognized, with the largest and most recognizable being E. Sibericum, the size of a mammoth. The purpose for its horn was to drive off predators and competitors, to attract mates and scrape off snow from grass, similar to the woolly rhino above. Its legs, however, were longer than any other rhino species and were even adapted for galloping, but this is highly speculative and depends on the various interpretations of its weight. Unlike many other herbivorous species, their molars were ever-growing, adding layers of enamel from within, similar to the rings inside a tree. Another subject of debate about the Siberian unicorn is whether it had fur or not. We have to keep in mind that the Pleistocene was not a continuous ice age period, but rather a back and forth in terms of planetary temperatures. This may suggest that Elasmotherium grew its fur when needed and then renouncing it when times were warmer. Number 2. Homotherium. The Pleistocene together with the earlier period of the Pliocene are well documented as having a large number of different species of felines roaming all over the world as top predators. As this list can attest, this statement was largely true, and this species in particular was interesting to say the least. Homotherium, or sometimes called the Scimitartooth cat, had 2 enlarged canines, from where it also draws its nickname. But these teeth were nowhere near as long as those of the infamous Saber-Toothed Cat. Though they never got past its lower jaw in terms of length, its canines had serrated edges, good for slicing through flesh and creating wide-open wounds which would make its victims die of eventual blood loss. However, just like the saber-toothed cat, Homotherium's blades were somewhat fragile and were rarely put in risky situations. Scimitartoothed cat remains can be found all throughout the Northern Hemisphere, including in North America, and it was especially suited for the cold weather. It stood more on the flat of its foot rather than balancing on its toes like many felines do today. This gave it the advantage of walking on thick snow with relative ease without sinking in as much. Another adaptation was its long forelegs and shoulders that result in its back sloping downwards, giving it a hyena-like appearance. Thanks to this adaptation, Homotherium was good at preserving energy while traveling long distances. Similar to the wolf, this feline may have opted to chase its prey for long periods of time, until it eventually collapsed by exhaustion. This in turn may indicate that it hunted and lived in prides just like modern-day lions. There are examples in the fossil record where scimitar-toothed cats preferred hunting large, herbivorous mammals found in the northern reaches of the world and may have had an inclination for juvenile mammoths. Like most of the megafauna at the time, Homotherium went extinct at the end of the last ice age when steppes were replaced by forests and its favorite large prey was no longer to be found. More competition, including early humans and possibly even disease, may have all caused their disappearance to a degree. They first disappeared in Africa more than 1.5 million years ago, but survived in Eurasia up until some 30,000 years ago. North America was the last bastion, however, surviving here for an extra 20,000 years. Number 3. Savasbeast. Savasbeast, or Savasbeast, was initially believed to have been part of the elephant family. When this was disproven, it was classified as an antelope. Only with the help of French naturalist Geoffroy Saint-Hilaire in the early 19th century did we managed to realize that in fact it was a member of the giraffe family. Its body proportions were somewhat strange and unfamiliar to us today, but back then many prehistoric giraffes had a similar build. Also somewhat similar to a moose, it had a strong build around the shoulders and a body that was supported by long, relatively thin legs. A living species of similar characteristics is the okapi from Central Africa. Savastherium's head was adorned with 2 series of horns. A pair of smaller ossicones was just above the eyes, while 2 larger horns would rise up from the back of the skull and which loosely resembled moose antlers. Initially it was believed that Savasbeast had a short trunk or extended movable lip with which it was able to grab vegetation more easily. This is now thought to have not been the case, since it's more probable that it had a long prehensile tongue like other giraffe species of today. But since this is soft tissue we were talking about here, it unfortunately was not preserved in the fossil record. We can only speculate what Savasbeast actually looked like. Nevertheless, what we do know for certain is that it stood around 7 feet tall at the shoulder and probably weighed in at about 4,000 pounds, making it the largest ruminant that's ever existed, only going extinct some 11,000 years ago. Number 4. Pantherodonta. Pantherodonta, more commonly known as the Eurasian cave lion, was the largest feline to prowl the northern reaches of Eurasia. It was a close relative to its North American counterpart Pantherodonta atrox. Unlike the previous cave dwellers we mentioned above, this lion does not seem to have made caves a permanent home. Remains of this prehistoric lion have been found in areas where caves are non-existent, and it seems to have had a great resistance to cold. It also seems that the cave lion made it a habit to attack cave bears in their dens while hibernating, or to snatch their young when they were not looking. Nevertheless, its main diet, according to the isotope markers found in its bones, was composed of mostly reindeer, which it hunted by stalking from the underbrush. Besides the fossil record, more information about these lions comes from their inclusion in cave art, which depict them as having manes as well as faint stripes running down their bodies. This would have helped them blend in better with their forest surroundings, as well as to protect them from the low temperatures. Ultimately, they shared a fate similar to most other animals here in this list, with climate change altering its habitat. Even though it should have thrived in the ever-expanding forests, the decreased number of large herbivores as well as the added competition from cave hyenas, wolves and humans made it impossible for the Pantherodonta to go on. Some evidence suggests that some small pockets managed to survive for another 10,000 years in southeastern Europe, but even these did not make it past the Pleistocene period. Number 5. The cave hyena. The now extinct cave hyena, which lived throughout Eurasia, looked nearly identical to its modern day counterpart. Besides having a longer femur and humerus, the resemblance between them was uncanny. Even its fur was identical as depicted in Neanderthal pictograms found in caves throughout Europe. But what is less known about them, however, is that they changed the entire course of human history. They are considered the main reason for why man was not able to cross into North America via the Bering Land Bridge any sooner. It was not until the cave hyena was gone that man was able to make that trek. The common image of the hyena is that of a scavenger overwhelming a predator and chasing it from its kill, on the account of it living in packs. And while this is true, there are also countless cases where hyenas hunted their own prey. This adaptation was also present in the now extinct hyena, as many remains from different species have been found at the caves it inhabited. Nevertheless, the majority seem to be from wild horses like Perzualska's horse or the mighty woolly rhino, suggesting that they specialized in hunting these two species in particular. It is also believed that they even killed and ate cave bears on occasion, but it's more likely they feasted on already dead ones they found. Cave hyenas also had frequent contact with Neanderthals, having to compete for the dens both species inhabited. Their demise came with the end of the Ice Age, as temperatures rose and previous grasslands gave way to forests. This new habitat was no longer suited for his favorite prey, and it had to make do with whatever else it could find. Not to mention that a new competitor made its presence felt in the area. The wolf was a contemporary of the cave hyena, but never truly came in contact on the account of the difference in environments they thrived in. In short, the wolf was far better suited for a forest life, not to mention the hyena no longer had the advantage of numbers on its side. I hope you enjoyed watching the video about 5 long-lost beasts of the old world. Subscribe to our channel and learn more about new things. Thanks for watching video. Subscribe, comments, likes and share. Thank you.